Welcome to Politricks, the politics of insight. My name is John, and I'll be joined with a round table of friends and family to discuss political events of the day.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes.
If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement.
You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
If I'm not right, I'm the first to admit that I'm not right.
During my service in the United States Congress, I took the initiative in creating the Internet.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
I was born on the 4th of July, so I learned politics early. We can all agree, learning about politics early shows that you know it was crazy from jump. Check out Politricks.
I believe what I said yesterday. I don't know what I said, but I know what I think, and I assume it's what I said.
In a civil deposition about her having had an affair with you. Mr. President, is that true?
That is not true. That is not true. I did not ask anyone to tell anything other than the truth. There is no improper relationship.
There you go again.
I feel your pain.
Hello.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, that's rare. Usually the first time I don't get it right. So hey.
Yay! So I know, right? It's been a bit. It has been a bit.
Afro. I mean, my God.
I know I'm bald. Well, on purpose I cut it. It's summer. It's hot.
Show off.
It's super hot. Welcome to Politricks. This is two of us today. It's going to be Terrance and I, going over the days, weeks, months, events, politically speaking, and all the shenanigans and tomfoolery. I think it's pretty safe to say the biggest bit of tomfoolery at this point is, the debate. Right? I mean...
Well, it's also, you have to take a honest look at it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, an honest look. Sorry, I think your video, I accidentally cut your video. You want me to put it back on?
Yeah, you can. You cannot. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just the top of your head at this point anyway.
Yeah, well, they're not blinded, so whatever.
Right. Anyway, so the debate was had, the first, possibly only, debate between former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden. I think that most people would say it was not Biden's best performance, whereas Trump, great performance, and by performance I mean it was all lies.
Well, I mean,
it was.
Do we really have all day?
It was literally all lies. So, do you want the person who, with a stutter and a cold, maybe was not particularly eloquent, or do you want the eloquent liar?
Well, that was basically it, because I mean, people seem to forget that, we can talk about mental differences all we want. One of the few that truly physically active is stuttering.
Yeah, well, and I think that people forget that all the time because, typically, but Joe Biden speaks very well, but he does have a stutter, and that is kind of a lifelong project that you have to work on. And I was telling my wife, I was like, the problem with having any kind of any easily categorizable situation that you're in, like if you're old or if you're black or if you're a woman, and there's already a bunch of stereotypes that people will have of you, and
as an opinion.
Yeah, and if you affirm any of those at any time, then people are like, see, he's a typical black person, she's a typical woman, he's a typical old guy. And it's like, so the stereotype overrides whatever truth may actually be there. Now, I know a bunch of people listening will probably say, "Oh, you're just making excuses." It's no, he had a really bad performance. I mean, I would have basically, anytime Trump spoke, I would have said, "Well, the felon refused to answer the question." He, that's what I would have said. I would have every single time it was my turn to talk. Yeah, anytime he spoke, I would be like, "Well, looks like the felon didn't want to answer that question. Would you like to answer that question, felon?" That's probably what I would have said. And it would have gotten under his skin because he would have really, really hated that. I also would have said that's a lie. Everyone knows that's a lie, although people will not necessarily affirm or confirm that because they're locked into not wanting to look at certain sources. But, that
Well, see,
is.
that's part of the problem that we're having in society right now. I mean, I've mentioned this before in some sort of non-eloquent way, but to be very frank, forget about higher power, Jehovah, Yahweh, or any other as far as God. Our society worships opinion. They worship jobs.
Sure.
They worship safety / control / fear as a three-headed God. I could go on and on for the next 15 minutes or more, but the basic gist is, as long as we have these deities running around now, the truth will never be seen. Because like someone will tell you, "Want my opinion," and you look at them frankly and says, "Well, will your opinion stop a bullet?"
Yeah,
Now
right.
they say you're threatening them, but you're not threatening. You're trying to bring home the point that just because you believe something does not mean it's true.
Well, I just got back from teaching a meditation retreat for teens in New Mexico. And the thing about it is that, I would quote, I think it's the third Zen patriarch who basically says, the great way is easy for those who have no opinions. When heaven and earth are, as long as you have an opinion, you're sort of setting something up against something else rather than seeing the whole picture. Hold on a second. My dog is acting a stone cold fool. Hold on one second. Okay, my stone cold fool of a dog who has to be near me every second of the day, even during a podcast. But yeah, so I mean, it's just right? So anytime you have an opinion, you're already sort of separating reality. But I think that, if you're Joe Biden and people already project onto you you're old and you're feeble and we have an ageist society anyway, if you just lose your sort of train of thought with the barrage of lies you're having to deal with Trump, then it's like, oh, see, he's unfit. And most of the liberal pundit class has essentially set their hair on fire and decided, oh my God, we got to get rid of this guy. And I'm going to say it for all to hear, far and wide, I would vote for Joe Biden's head in a jar before I would vote for Trump. Because what I know is that he is one part of his entire administration. You are voting for him and everybody he would hire who are very capable people in his cabinet, and in his administrative offices. You're hiring that. Trump is essentially 40 some odd people who work for Trump said he's unfit to actually hold the office and would never work for him again. 40 of, I think, 49 or something crazy like that. I mean, it was not just a little majority, it was almost all of them said, oh, this guy cannot be in office and I would not work for him. But so he's not going to have even the people that he had before. He's going to have even worse sycophants that are going to be behind the show, and they're going to do terrible things. They're going to be just like, you know what? Yeah, we're fine with being bought off by oil companies. We don't need to do anything about climate change. We don't need to do anything about like all these rising hate crimes, or because, that's going to go through the roof too, because anybody who's some chucklehead who really likes him and thinks that he allows for racism, sexism, or homophobia is just going to go nuts. So it's not him that's the problem. It's everything around him. I mean, he's the problem too. I mean,
he's a gateway virus.
Yeah, he's
I mean, a mental gateway virus. He is. He's a mental gateway virus because, you know, lack of a better term, by his presence as a gateway, he allows people to feel comfortable, saying and doing certain things that they would not feel comfortable if it wasn't for him being around.
sure. It's kind of like if somebody says, "Hey, I understand you don't like people with purple hair. I don't like people with purple hair. I'm going to say it publicly. I hate people with purple hair." Then all of a sudden, everybody that's under you can be more, free with
Comfortable.
saying they hate people with purple hair. And he did that.
But
I
the
believe Rick.
problem is,
Go ahead.
is that he does it in a dishonored manner. What I mean is, everything Trump says, it's 90% is true, but it's a matter of numbers. You know, a good example is like you say, well, you have rapists and murderers coming from South America. He's right, but out of 1,000, maybe 10.
If
You
that,
know,
it's
you
like,
see what I'm saying? We
oh,
know there's at least one or two. We know he's not lying in that sense for every 1,000.
sure, there's a percentage, but by and large, the statistics, if you believe such things like truth,
No, I'm just saying just pure
suggests,
numbers. Is I
yeah,
mean, because
suggests
the
that
way
they
he
just don't
describes
do
it,
that.
I'm
You
saying
know,
the way he describes it, it would just be nothing but a bloodbath between here and South America.
sure, it
So
would just be murders all the time, but I think that he really appeals to old, scared people. Uh, and they're like, "Oh, I heard about a murder that happened in the city, so maybe it is crazy." And it's like, well, crime has been trending down for a while. It had a blip up during COVID, but the overall trend of the last 20, 30 years is it's been going down. Robberies and things like that have increased during COVID. I think there was like sort of property theft crimes, shoplifting, things like that increased. But again, they were less than I think that they had been. But if you're an old, scared person who doesn't really low information kind of person, you're going to be like, oh, apparently they're just on a rape fest anytime they come across the border. When in fact, if you are here illegally, you are trying to keep your nose very clean because you don't want to get sent back. So you are driving the speed limit. Now there's of course outliers and plenty of them that, do break laws and do crazy stuff. But by and large, they tend to actually trend to have less crime and that they do than the general populace that are actually natives of the country they're in. Now, that's not to say anything about Europe and their immigration problems. They're different. But, here it tends to be a lot quieter. But he can appeal to those people because, they're fear-based people anyway,
and also he's not realistic about other things too, because how many times? I mean, the best example is Carter. And what I mean by Carter was a peanut farmer.
Sure.
When Carter became president, did peanut prices jump up high to profit him? Yes or no? The answer is no. Then Biden really isn't responsible for Taco Bell going from the 5-layer burrito being 99 cents not 10 years ago to being $5 now. That's not in his hand, realistically.
Well,
Just by
yeah, and I think that people don't understand inflation. It's like you and I have been alive over 50 years. We do remember a time when gas was less than $1 a gallon. It has never gone back. It never will. And if anybody just were to allow themselves to think about their own lives, nothing has gone down. They just go up faster or slower, and that determines the rate of inflation. It's like if it goes up really, really fast, inflation's bad. If it goes up fairly slow, it's like inflation's not that bad. But milk's never going to be under $1 again. Gas is never going to be under $1 again. Nothing you buy is going to go go down. Now, things like TVs, electronic equipment, when there's a less supply and it's harder to make the chips, yeah, it skyrockets. That stuff tends to go down. But food prices, they tend to just kind of peak up a little bit, level off, peak up, go up a little bit, level off. And that's just over and over again. You can find different situations where, oh no, there was a super bumper crop of oranges, so then oranges go down. Or there was a frost, okay, oranges go up. But in general, things most things don't go down. I don't know of anyone who's bought a car for $1,000 or a house for $5, and yet at one,
don't get new.
yeah, right. And at a certain point, those were the prices of those things. I don't know of anyone who's gone recently to the movies for a quarter. So the problem is that there's all these people that are like, oh, inflation's so bad, prices are so bad. It's like, yeah, but they're not going down. They just might go up slower. And your president isn't going to necessarily affect that outside of perhaps slowing the rate of it, which is what American presidents tend to do. Our economies tends to be pretty strong. So we don't tend to suffer the things that Europe suffers, where, there's countries in Europe where if they didn't have tourism, they'd have nothing going on. They would have
Well, see,
no products going on.
part of the problem we have in our country is 5 simple facts. Number one, we waste our greatest resource, which is waste. That's number one.
Waste what? What is the resource that we're wasting?
Waste, garbage.
Oh yeah,
food.
We could food
Mm-hmm.
waste, yeah, and all that, yeah, for sure.
All of it. That's one. Number two, we don't set a standard in 2 ways. One, a response. What I mean is, when you go to a hospital, you might have a bad day. You go to the TSA, they're notorious for the sign, don't curse them out, don't call them names. And they might not let you put your grandma's brooch on the thing because it's got a knife in it.
Sure.
And they'll throw it away. And you've
Sure.
had this in the family for 200 years. No one thought about it.
Sure.
You need, if our societies go forward, you need a legal, same level response other than going to court. Because that's why we wind up with crazy, stupid stuff happening. Because the person reacts rather than being able to say, even as like, here we have $5, $10, $20, $50 packages. We will take for $5. We'll put that little necklace on the plane for you, for the grandma. You understand? And you just pay the $5. It rides on the plane, but you can't have it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That gives you a response. That gives you an option. I'm not talking about where they have a third party. We'll charge you $75 to send the same thing. No, that's not right. Because you don't have that. You weren't expecting it.
Well, that brings us up to another thing that was happening in the last week, which is that the Supreme Court just sort of undid a court case, Chevron, which basically allowed, I believe it's called Chevron deference, but it's basically allowed administrative agencies like the FCC, the FDA, all EPA, all of these federal agencies who have their own experts, have their own people that know what they're doing, that now they no longer can make decisions themselves. Any penny ante decision now needs to go to court. So now there's going to be even more court cases to decide regulations, which I think the end result will be a whole lot of things won't go to court. People just won't bother, and deregulation will happen without, because no one wants to bug the court or go through the court case to say, yeah, it's like, I don't want you dumping. Pepsi wants to dump some, bunch of chemicals into a river. I have to go to court to say that the parts per million should be X or Y. I don't want to bother. Pepsi has a lot of money. They can spend more to go to court than I can as the farm owner that owns, land down the way.
By the response, though. That's what I mean by this response. Because what's going to happen, and it's going to happen because it's happened in history, where the 20-something grandson or the 20-something son is going to say, F that. He's and a couple of his friends are going to get together and they're going to get an oiler truck and they're going to pick up the chemicals and they're going to drop it off at the Pepsi plant.
Yeah,
by flooding it.
Yeah,
they're not going to drop it off politely. They're going to, or the same thing like manure. They're going to take it and drop it off in the court.
Sure.
And there are going to be people who are going to say, well, we need to sue. And that's where the problem's going to come, because what they need is a response.
Mm-hmm. And so
I'm not talking about court. I'm not talking about the next day, because it's like the same thing. When a police officer falsely pulls you over, and it says, well, you were doing 50, and whatever reason you have on your body cam, because you have a body cam, whatever reason, and it says you're going 45 instead of 50 during that time, you shouldn't have to go to court, and you shouldn't have to hear a DA jump up and say, well, we're very good. No, you're not, because then they want to charge you court costs.
Sure.
I mean, if our society is going to survive, first thing we got to get rid of is the non-disclosure agreement, which I mentioned before. We got to get rid of that because we got to give the same right. They're good apples. They're good, honorable officers. They're good people out there. But the bad apples got to be put in the spotlight. They got to be shown, hey.
Yeah.
And that includes with the corporations,
and everything else. Well, and I think that what the courts are kind of in a process of doing right now is trying to get rid of the things that would essentially make administrative law, a bit more of a different thing. Hold on 1 second again. Sorry about that one last time, but I think what the
okay, you're at your house, so there's no big deal.
The dog Milton. Now all of our listeners are like, "Oh, Milton." Yes, it's Milton. But so I think they're trying to get rid of sort of the administrative state and tie it back into courts or the executive branch. Probably giving courts more power, giving the executive branch more power. Because
but see, what you don't understand, this will create a flux, a paradox of 100 years ago, where we had the mob, and they had what was that movie that just came out talking about the Native Americans who were screwed over because they had oil in their property?
The children of the blood moon, something like that. I know what you're talking about. It was about the Osage
exactly
women that had inherited all kinds of land that had oil rights on it and systemically killed by white people to get the land back.
Exactly. And see, what people don't understand, we're on the only chance people have right now. We cannot allow not being able to have some sort of response, which includes podcasts or the internet or, even passing out something. I don't know. Because right now, someone could say, as I said earlier, one of the deities is jobs. You have Dinosaur, Colorado, 200 people, and Target or Walmart can decide that they want to stop the other as a strategic point with one of their stores in Dinosaur. And the first thing they'll say is jobs. And smart ones will say that's not a good thing. But all it takes is to promote jobs, and all of a sudden you go there in about 2 years, out of the 200 people, 150 are working there, and the rest have businesses that are closed. So
well, it's like Walmart will create jobs, but they'll get rid of all of the other mom and pop stores that will then let go of jobs. Yeah, it's like at some point the problem, I think there are many problems with every economic system, but one of the problems of capitalism specifically is that eventually you're just going to get a monopoly, which is why we always have to have antitrust laws, because at some point it's just going to the small company is going to become a bigger company, and it's going to buy up more small companies, and pretty soon you have a monopoly, and then it needs to be broken up like Ma Bell, and it still sort of becomes a monopoly again. I do think that the Supreme Court has lost quite a bit of legitimacy, because it's like, oh, we're not political, and then they take these donations from everyone, and they rule on the cases of the people they're getting donations from, and they seem to go their way, but they're the highest court in the land, and so that they don't really have anyone to police them. And I think that for democracy's sake, I think we're going to have to start a movement to have term limits for Supreme Court people as well. I think we're going to have to do that.
I don't think so, for one reason and one reason only.
Okay.
200 years, it has worked. And because the bit players are not just those who sit on their bench right now. The bit players are Mitch McConnell.
Sure. Not letting Obama have a Supreme Court pick months and months before the election. I think you're muted again. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was saying they realize that they cannot do certain things. You
Sure.
understand? And now all of a sudden we have Clarence Thomas, and I'm not highlighting him because of obvious reasons, other than the fact that he's been blatant. But we have him and others, and there's always a reason, always a justification. And this is what they don't understand. The whole system is an agreement. That's all it is. It's an agreement. put it in one word, is an agreement. And the best way to explain it is like the police. The agreement is I'm going to do what it takes to make sure that everyone is safe, including myself. That's the agreement. Now, when that agreement's broken, this is where the system has problems.
Sure.
Because when they overact or overjump and there's no reason to. Now we know mishaps will happen. I don't like it. You don't like it. Nobody likes it when someone is shot with pepper spray and they have an allergic reaction and they suffocate.
Sure.
But that is such a crapshoot. You
So
understand?
what you're saying is you don't want limits on Supreme Court justices' terms because of a few bad apples at the moment.
Right.
Now,
But what I do want is I want them to understand there is, as they love to say, legality, causation. You can't just do this like Thomas, you know, I should be able to go on this boat. Well, okay, you go on this boat, then by the public opinion, who you work for, you can't gotta be recused from dealing with these people.
yeah, but the problem is that it's just up. I mean, because they're the top, there's no one to say that you need to recuse yourself to force the issue. It's just your choice. And so at a certain point, it's like
nobody goes in.
I mean, if I mean, what I found, and this is, I mean, everybody just is so drunk on the awesomeness of the founding fathers. Now, I've never been, for various reasons, not the least of which is they were many of them were slave owners. I don't have to say that they were terrible in other ways, because I do think they created a pretty awesome Constitution and Declaration of Independence. But I never thought that they were sacrosanct or that they were just, unimpeachable.
They were human.
They were human. They were human. I mean, but I think one of the things that shows their humanness in the creation of our constitutional republic is the fact that all it takes is a corruption of a few people and the whole thing is undone. Nothing was it was just suggestions like, oh, we don't really want you to do this thing. It's like they don't even have a law that says that you couldn't be a criminal and be president. I mean, I think they assumed that would just why would there ever be a criminal that would ever become president? They didn't really think that far out the box.
Well, see, the problem is a couple of things. Like, for instance, there is no problem, and I mean, it's no problem with anybody being president for life. Really isn't. If 3 rules are followed. 1, they genuinely care about their country and the constituents. Remember that they're always working for us. That we're not their puppets, that we're not their this or their that. And that they accept that when their time comes, be it senility or whatever else. Because there are countries that have had good leaders who have been president for life who did not have to do dirty things. It's just that it's rare.
Sure.
But that should also be accepted as a possibility. And why I'm going with it, I'm not trying to go one way or the other. I'm trying to be honest about the situation. Because we had Teddy Roosevelt, who started the Bull Party, to go against another because he did not like that person to run. Sure. So, I mean, not, Trump running again. Nobody has anything against him running again. But the problem is the unseen or unmentioned factors. You can't criticize Trump and say that it was all trumped up or anything else, play on words, or talk about Hunter Biden again, say it's all trumped up or play on words. And then say that the everyday man, the everyday citizen is charged with the same thing and say, well, they must have did something. You can't do that. They want to say what Trump did. What Trump did was that he did a lot of things. Sure. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel pointed out, he broke basically the whole 10 commandments except killing. And I mean, he did.
Yeah.
The question is if you want that, you can't complain when he does certain things, like he exploits. Sure. And if you want to talk about any good thing he does, he comes in not wanting to play by the rules.
Sure.
And sometimes the rules get in the way. So I'll give him that. And Biden's flaw is that he wants to play by the rules, and he forgets that the person has just turned the game board over and don't care.
Well,
they say they win.
Sure. And I think that, but I also think that the Democrats have sort of described this election as it's a vote for democracy, and I think that's too theoretical for people. I think I think America is the kind of country that it would never believe that it could go the way of 1920s Germany. It doesn't think that could ever possibly happen. And it really could. I mean, all you have to do, I mean, the election could have been undone by no more than 6 people. If 6 people said, "Yeah, I'm going to find him the 10,000 votes," or "Yeah, I'm going to throw these votes out." I mean, just a small amount of people kind of preserved that election's integrity. And for in a lot of situations, a lot of those people are gone. They've put in their, attorneys general that would actually do the other thing. So I mean, I just feel like, I guess the thing I'm trying to say is that for all of their wisdom, the founding fathers didn't realize that human corruption could undo the entire experiment. Because that's all it really is. It's a bunch of people who are corrupt, who are supporting another person who's corrupt, and they're too afraid to speak against his corruption. And the fan base of him is such that, political violence could absolutely happen if you get too mad at him. And that's it. That's all she wrote. A little bit of corruption. I mean, there were a couple of things in the debate that I don't think that flew so fast that people forgot them, like how he was talking to Putin. Trump was talking to Putin about his dream of taking over Ukraine. So when did that conversation occur? That
Well, see, and that's one
when
of the
did
things that
I
people
mean
are
when
not
did
addressing.
yeah, when did that? Oh, and the other thing, which I think we need to say about every day until the election, what the hell is a black job? What
Well,
what
that's one of the things is that
what's a black job? It's, I know
you
lawyers,
have
I
people who
know
want.
doctors. What is exactly a
One of
black
them was
job?
president. One of them was president. Wasn't the
Yeah,
funniest thing?
yeah. One's a Supreme Court justice right now. I mean, what is a black job? It's like there's this. I understand that all politicians want to pander, but trying to say that black people should be worried because the immigrants are there to take their jobs, what take their jobs specifically because they're black jobs, which suggests that those are our jobs, the jobs we're supposed to have. See, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to tell you, people think that it's mysterious how we to not offend black people by saying something inappropriate, or it's a minefield or walking on eggshells of trying not to say the racist thing or whatever else. Here's a clue. Don't say all of us do anything. Don't say all of us belong to anything. Don't say all of us like a thing. Don't say all of us think a thing. It's just not true. As long as you avoid that, and if a black person tells you, no, all black people like pork, no, we do not. They're lying to you too. They're lying to you too. So if
You're
anybody,
talking to two stereotypical defiant people right now.
well,
If
I mean,
you're
yeah,
listening to this
we are
podcast,
outliers to some degree. If you want to listen to our other podcast, Blerd, Old Man Blerd, but no, not there. If you want to actually avoid irking a black person, just don't make a generalization that we all do a thing. I mean, the only real universal that black people have is that we all experience racism. Beyond that, we can like different music, we can dress differently, we can go to different churches or not church at all, we can be different religions. I know black Muslims, black Buddhists, black Christians, you name it. The only thing that really you have to avoid is saying all black people do a thing, or there is such a thing as a black job, because they're just jobs. There might be jobs that have more education or less education, and some black people have more education or less education, but they're not black jobs. It's like Black Twitter was being hilarious during the weekend about black jobs. They were talking about black jobs are the person who gives you a to-go plate at the picnic, the person who is the first to say support the singer who's having a hard time during church. I mean, they were making real light of what a black job actually is. Person
Oh,
who was
but they were right. That's the sad part.
the person who was counting the amount of books and spades they were supposed to get. I mean, it was funny because it's ridiculous. And here's another thing. If black people were the violent, crazy people that people think we are,
We would have resolved this issue a long
we
time
would
ago.
have destroyed this country a long time ago. We would have destroyed this country. I mean, the average quote unquote Karen experiences a thing that black people experience roughly every week. So the filmed white Karen freaking out because the service is bad at fill in the blank. That black people are getting that all the time. It's like, you literally be in line, someone cuts in front of you in line, and the people just are like, whatever.
And don't be the non-stereotype. That's already against you. Don't be
Yeah.
mentally different. That's against you.
No, neurodivergent folks. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Don't date
So
out or be outside your race. That's another one.
no, yeah, and that's another thing that's terrible is like all these black Republicans. It's like, look, they it wouldn't be. They all have they all have interracial like spouses. It's like, ah, come on, man, you're making people that aren't friggin' terrible look like that. Everybody is just, oh, everybody who dates someone outside their race, that they're like Clarence Thomas. Or this other guy that said that life was better under Jim Crow. I forgot what congressperson that was, but he's another.
Was that Scott?
Yeah, it's another. No, it wasn't Tim Scott, but it was another friggin' sycophant. And by sycophant, I stress the word sick. But yeah, I
Well, we do have to cleanse our gene pool.
yeah, God, it's like it's like it's like not everybody who's in a interracial relationship hates black people.
Or the
just
other way
the
around.
just
We're
the
not
just
we're
the
not
just the Republican one. Just the
we're not
Republic
fascinated with outsider race neither. It's more like who accepts us.
the black Republicans are the only affirmative action that's problematic that I see. Um, giving everyone that's on Fox News or whatever else a pass to say the most heinous stuff they could possibly say.
You're being
But
polite.
yeah, so black jobs, that was a bad one. Talking to Putin, that was a bad one. And then just all the nonstop lies. And so yeah, people really need to realize you're not voting for just Trump. You're voting for Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon and every toad that
My thing is
that's actually insulting toads. Every creepy, crawly, evil thing. Let
below
Lich,
bacterium.
Demilich that wants to still have power. That's what you're voting for. It's like, yeah. I think I'll have to have that in the show notes. I was like, is Steve Bannon a Demilich? Are the black Republicans affirmative action hires?
Well, I mean, what people don't understand is this is the sad part in a phrase
Sure.
is they're worried about Biden. And again, we both had mentioned viral effects as in virus.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, like you were saying about getting Trump, it doesn't matter. You have people, well, I don't want to talk about, Biden, and they'll say Brandon, first of all, you effers out there who don't like Biden or don't like Trump, respect the president's title, his office. You don't have to like the person in there. This has
Sure.
gone all the way back to Carter.
Sure.
And people are saying that Reagan did good because Iran released the hostages as soon as they realized that Reagan was in charge. Well, Reagan did just like Trump. I'm not going to play the game. And what people don't understand, if we had a independent or a Democrat to come in and say we're not going to play the game, they would not know what to do because Democrats have always been democratic. Mm-hmm. We're going to obey the rules. Sure. They've never dealt with someone who said, yeah, we're going to obey the rules. Hey, the 1.5 edition. What? Yeah, we just changed that.
Sure.
They would not know how to deal with that because their belief, like Putin, he's afraid, as I mentioned before, that, the Ukraine is like, he's like a guy that had that girl, and if I can't have her, nobody's going to have her. Mm-hmm. And China's doing the same thing with Taiwan.
Sure. Sure. And, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's another thing is like, if Putin paid Trump enough, or if Xi in China paid Trump enough, he wouldn't stop their ambitions at all. He wouldn't do it. I mean, he's really quite self-serving. I mean, these people, that's what so blows me away is all these people that are like, no, he cares about us. It's like, I don't think he does. I really think that if you can look at Donald Trump and say, oh, that's a dude that cares about America. I got some oceanfront property in Arvada, Colorado. I can sell you for sure. I will mail the title to you. I'll mail the title to
Can
you
I
if
get on that?
believe that.
Can I get in on that?
Right? It's like so the debate, and I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna make any excuses for Joe Biden's performance. I don't know. I know that I've heard that he had a cold. I know that they ran him ragged like just hours before with a bunch of different stops. And I know I would be tired after that.
I'm not even addressing that. Like, the biggest thing I'm going to address is that they point out, Fox, how he doesn't know where he's at. And yet, whatever you say, stutter, boy, take 4 hours to answer, he addressed everything that's presented to him.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, he answered the
Versus Trump.
questions. He answered the
Exactly.
questions.
Now, whether you like that it took him so long because it cut the mic, okay, Mr. President, you're taking 10 seconds too long, clip. But Trump went off the rails.
All the time.
And if we got money for every time we went off the rails, we would not be working no more, my brother.
Yeah, I mean, and let it be said. I mean, I kind of, there's a part of me, maybe it's the anarchist in me, but there's a part of me that is like, okay, if you dumbasses really think that it's going to be better under him, let's see how that goes. Because I think what would happen immediately is as soon as he got in, he would figure out first and foremost, first, second, third, fourth thing that he would do is how he can get out from under all these court cases, whether that be firing those judges, getting them. I mean, that would literally be the first thing he did. We could literally have half the country on fire. And the first thing he would do was figure out a way to get out of those court cases. And I think after that, maybe he gets like, the January 6th people pardoned. I mean, always nice to pardon some people that can maybe rough up some people that you want them to rough up if if you need to. And then I just think that he would just kind of go through the motions. I really don't think he cares that much. I think that if somebody told him tomorrow, look, we're going to get rid of all of your court cases, you don't have to be president, I think he'd take the option. I think he would actually take. I don't think he's doing it for anything other than perhaps to increase his wealth and to get out of those court cases. And I think those are the first few things he'll do. Oh, speaking of which, the Supreme Court also said, made it legal that is if you want to give someone a donation for doing a thing, as long as you don't do it for before they do it, it's fine. So now I can say, I promise you $1 million if you do this court case this way. They do the court case that way, I pay the $1 million. So
yeah, it sounds like somebody who got a couple of trips, now they no longer can be questioned.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, can you imagine that? It's like now, as long as you don't give the gift or the gratuity before the thing that you're rewarding them for, not a bribe. So I mean, they're just and
See, this is where we again need to attack them. Go to ways of Solomon, for lack of a better term. I'm not talking about wisdom. I'm talking about again the causation. You remember when people used to do the dog poo and put it in a bag and set on fire. I'm not saying do anything like that, but to the degree I am saying whatever the hazard, like all the water in Flint, drop it off on the governor's doorstep. That's all bad. If it may be extreme, may be ridiculous, but we have to do something other than say it's okay. It's just like whoever is going to be present, they got to get rid of this Cronus time delay where they run around and say, well, in 60 years, we're going to get rid of coal.
Yeah.
No, you got to get rid of coal within 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they'll be talking about the God jobs. Well, here's the thing. They got rid of slavery. Yeah, they came in with the chain gangs and the guards to take care of the slave owners that were before that. That's very true. But there still was a convergence, a change. There still was. It's the same. They got rid of liquor and they had the probation, they went to drugs and reefer and marijuana. That's right. There still was a change. All I'm saying is that if we do something, because the problem is we have so many jobs where people can tell us what to do,
Mm-hmm.
you
So
know, and yet because we have HOAs now, even be paid at HOA to tell you what to do with your house.
sure,
We have declutterers to tell you what you can have in your house. We have child protective services telling you how to be a parent.
sure.
And yet, where we need the organicness, as you know, I've been a proponent for of anything because that's the only way you'll really learn it. If they keep interfering, it's going to be an interference and a static, and you're not going to know what to do when the time comes. And
Well,
that's the problem.
and
Or
so
you're going to do worse.
yeah. So the Supreme Court case that decided that it was Snyder versus United States, the court clarified that federal bribery law does not make it a crime for state and local officials to accept gratuities as a token of appreciation. Excuse me. Excuse me. After an official act. So the regulation of gratuities is left to the state and local governments. Yay! I guess they're gonna. So I mean, they've been busy doing all of the terrible things. So yeah, yeah,
Well, because I mean, like one of the best things is what they need to do. We have an odd number of justices.
mm-hmm,
It's right. So here's the one thing we really can do. It can only work at 9 or 15.
mm-hmm,
And maybe 12. Any basis of 3. That's what I'm saying. Any basis of 3.
mm-hmm,
And what you would do is you would make sure that that set of 3, right now we have 9, 3 are conservative,
mm-hmm,
3 are independent, 3 are liberal.
mm-hmm.
That's the only way it'll work.
Well, and like I say, so yeah, it was Chevron, major blow to consumer protections and regulatory power. So I mean, it's been a revolutionary court in terms of reversing things that really helped little people and kind of kept
Well, yeah,
big
because
people
they
at
don't want
bay.
to address things. I mean, because here's the thing. What the Supreme Court doesn't understand, and maybe we should inundate them with a flood of a computer virus of all the 2 a.m. in the morning commercials. You know the
Sure,
ones. If you need the mesh, or you got the mesh,
sure,
if you were at Comp Lejeune, instead
right?
of going, okay, this was wrong, like we said about reparations at one point. You have a wrong. You have victims of this wrong. This the problem we have in our society, and we have come accustomed to the idea of using a wallet as a band-aid.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, the wallet and the band-aid do not coincide.
Hmm.
The damage is just too severe.
Well, and yeah, so it's like, what do you do to redress that? I think another thing that also happened, I'm trying to think of, there was a few different sort of hot button issues that sort of happened. Oh, another thing that happened is I believe it was the educational superintendent in Oklahoma that said that they're going to teach the Bible in school. This is a school district, a state that is
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. And the problem is,
ranked 49th in the country as far as educational outcomes. Their solution, the Bible.
and the problem with that is it's the same thing as I mentioned before about language. It's a fairness thing again. You're gonna put that up there. There are what 2,000 different faiths,
Sure, you're
and
gonna
some
have
are made
to.
every day.
Sure, sure, and they're gonna but that was their solution, not to look at like the other 48 states and see what they're doing, like maybe lowering class sizes, uh, maybe paying teachers better, maybe making sure every kid's eating before they go to school, that they have a stable house. No, we need
Stop
to teach.
excusing
We need to
misbehavior.
teach. We need to teach the Bible.
Yeah,
And
stop.
look, I'm not trying to slam the Bible by any means. I've come from a family of nothing but Sunday school teachers and ministers on at least my mother's side. And I myself have studied it quite extensively. But in terms of the reason why your educational outcomes in Oklahoma are bad, I don't think that's the solution. and it would be fine if that meant that they were also going to study the Quran, and they were going to study the Talmud and the Torah. They were going to study the Bhagavad Gita or the Dharmapada, but they're not going to do that.
My point.
They're
My
and
point.
I and
If
what I
they
would
studied
say
them
to that,
all,
yeah,
it would be one thing, but they're not.
no,
That's my point.
and what I would say about that guy is I would say so what exactly are you trying to run for? Because the only reason why you're doing it is it's a political trick. It's clearly the political trick of the week is that a person wanting to teach the Bible knowing that it won't hold up, and he can say, I tried to fight the liberal elites that were against me teaching the Bible. Vote for me for this new position I want. Because it clearly was a stunt. Clearly.
Well, my thing is like I mentioned about language, because they have the Spanish thing and everything.
Yeah, it was the state superintendent, just for those that are wanting to look it up. The state superintendent's name, I'll find it at some point. But anyway, go on, you were saying?
I was saying, the United States, by our democracy, has inspired countries, good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
that have gone from one extreme to the other. Because there are certain European countries, when their bank collapse and it cost people their livelihoods and thousands of dollars and their life savings, they went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to adapt that. Now, some people go, "Well, that's against capitalism." No, it's against abuse of a situation. Again, it's agreement and trust. But where I'm going with it is the same thing linguistically. I work at the airport. They have people from Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and they speak in some cases 30 different languages, but they have a bridge language. And the bridge language is French.
Sure.
No one has anything against people speaking Spanish, but the bridge language needs to be English
Sure.
because we have 300. No one said, "I'm not going to help you because you speak Spanish." Nope, that's stupid. It's stupid because you're not helping nobody. But by the same token, the other person who speaks Spanish shouldn't be, "Well, I refuse to learn it because nothing else. You want to drive here, you need to know what those signs say."
Now,
That's not,
what does that
you know,
have to do with exactly the superintendent? By the way, its name's Ryan Walters, I believe is
well,
the.
I'm saying it's the same thing with the faith. It's the same thing with faith. You can either have a bridge, which I bet with AI we can generalize all the faiths
Mm-hmm.
to like 10 different things
Sure.
and put them in every school, or we have all the faiths in the school.
Well, and
That's the same thing I'm saying.
they just won't do that. I mean, if you want to study it in religious studies, I'm all about that. And then maybe start looking at some of those verses in the Bible that support slavery and women as property. But by
Oh,
the
what? No, why would you have to go there?
or
I mean,
stoning children because they've been disobedient. I mean, there's plenty of stuff in there that it's like, I mean, for every verse that's people use to slam the LGBTQIA plus community, there's a verse about, doing some crazy thing because your children are disobedient, or not mixing your fabrics, or not having seafood, you know, can't eat
well, see,
lobster or
my
anything.
thing is that, and I've said this, I'm agnostic, so I Bible, blah blah blah. But to my point is very simple. This, the telephone game. Yeah,
How
telephone
explain?
game.
Yeah,
You
explain.
remember the telephone game? You start with 29 people in class, and you say, "I like you," and when you go to the 29th person, it's not the same message.
Sure.
It's the same thing with the Bible. I'm not
Sure.
saying everything they say is not true. It's
Sure.
just that in the years of editing,
Sure. I mean, it went, from say old Canaanite and Aramaic and to Greek to Latin to to
and there
Queen
probably certain
King's
times.
English to, yeah, and all kinds of things that changed, that had nothing to, that clearly were translation issues. Not to mention that, they didn't really know a whole lot of things like, epilepsy or
Yeah,
germ theory or,
no, of course not.
celestial
And
mechanics or, a heliocentric solar system. I mean, there was a lot of things they didn't know.
exactly. And see,
So
that's the problem again. What I was saying earlier about jobs. one of the problems we have, getting off the subject a little, is that someone like in his position, he's crying for faith.
Who
And other
is
people
this?
cry, the superintendent.
Oh yeah, Ryan Walters.
He's crying for faith.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people have cried for wolf jobs?
Sure.
And whole families have been destroyed, whole towns have been destroyed, whole species, not just
Well,
of animals, but of plants have been destroyed because they're in the wrong spot.
well, I'm gonna just hot take for this episode. Oklahoma's kind of become the Florida of the West, so
Ouch!
yeah,
That was low.
yeah. Come on, they literally are the site of the Tulsa race massacre. Didn't award anybody anything for it. Killed 400
That's
people.
as a start.
Excuse
As a
me.
start.
As a start, and don't now and I think are putting in laws in place to not teach that in school. So there you go.
And that's one of the biggest problems we have with our society is that people are, what have I said to you before, is that we give medals to dogs
Sure,
for saving someone's life.
sure.
And if our society is going to survive, the worst thing that's got to happen is also the best thing that's happened. And that is, just as we have Charles Manson as a standard of psycho, we need to
Sure.
have every one of those people, including justices, presidents, police officers, every
Mm-hmm.
one of them that has ever made a mistake in a negative context, we need to highlight them on a website so they can take pride in their work.
Yeah, right. It's like here,
You
just
know,
like bring a little light to it. It's like, hey, if you're proud of this thing that you've done,
I mean, not
why not? Why not own it? You know?
exactly, because I'm not saying, because you have the people, the naysayers will say, well, we all make mistakes. Dude, we're not talking about putting the oil inside the transmission fluid. Okay, we're talking about ending someone's life,
Yeah, right.
or stealing something that was too valuable to that person, or it as in it cost them their livelihood or their possible or even their sanity for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you want us to excuse it? You know, I mean, the power companies when they cut the power, because a person has paid, and we go, well, it's socialism. No, it's not. It's investing in our nation.
Sure. Well, I think
Everything is
that's
not socialism. It's investing in our nation, our citizens, and our family, our
sure.
people.
I think that we just now are at a place where we call anything socialism that we don't like. And for whatever reason, people hear National Socialism, which are the Nazis, and they couple that with the socialism that's in Europe now. uh,
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it's like, no, that wasn't the same socialism. Come on, be honest with yourself. But
Well,
I do want to say to the Democrats out there, don't do a Chicken Little and think the sky's falling. Biden's fine. He has a stutter. He is old, and again, head in a jar. I'd vote for him over Donald Trump. Head in a jar.
also because
Does not
we know
matter to
what he's
me.
going to do.
Yeah,
We know
does
what he's going to do.
yes, and Trump, you know. Trump, I guarantee you, if he were to get in office, he's going to punish Colorado for trying to take him off the ballot. He's going to try and punish any number of minority groups that didn't vote for him enough. He's going to go after every one of his political opponents while simultaneously saying that people shouldn't go after their political opponents, or they weaponize the DOJ, the Department of Justice, which he's going to totally do. And he's going to sell us down the river when it comes to any oil company, any foreign country that gives him any money. And he's just going to, look, the man's own wife isn't around him during court, during debates, during
Ouch.
anything that
was low for you, my brother. I know it's true, but it's low.
but come on, it's like you're gonna and almost everybody that worked in his administration thinks he's unfit. When are you going to wake up to that? When are these people going to wake up to that? He's been a terrible person. I didn't like Donald Trump before he ran for president. So it didn't
No, I
matter.
didn't like him neither
It
when
didn't
he
ma-
first had Trump Tower in New York. I didn't like him
No,
then.
yeah, and after the Central Park Five already had been exonerated, and he's like calling for the death penalty. Come on, this had to be busted multiple times for not renting to black people, violating civil rights, legislation.
Well, and see what people don't understand now. You and I both know about karma.
I mean,
He
his
has
father got
5
arrested
kids.
as a Klansman. Come on, just get out
I
of here.
said he's got 5 kids. Wouldn't it be interesting if one of them was part of the LGBT?
Yeah, but they'd never come out and say anything.
No,
I
we'll
mean,
just find out, but still it'd be funny.
his wife is buried like a gerbil in a golf course. I mean, this is not a good
For a
dude.
tax write-off. Forget that part. For a
Yeah,
tax write-off. Not
yeah,
like she loved golf. If she
no.
loved golf, you could say, okay.
Yeah, she loved that place, but no, it's like he's a billionaire that buries his wife like a gerbil or a goldfish in the backyard. I mean, come on. It's
For
like
a tax write-off.
it's like you're not. This is not your dudes. This is not your guy. You
Well, and
know?
also they run around and they forget that he's mawkish. And yes, we as a society, all of us, you and me, we all have done some mockery of something to process it because it doesn't make sense. We
Sure,
don't agree.
sure.
But he does it as a standard.
Yeah, I mean, his default is not very good. I mean, he punched his piano teacher when he's 8. Did you ever think of hitting an adult when you were 8? 8.
No, when you were 2, you thought about it, not when you're 8.
8, no. I mean, 2 maybe, but I mean, in general, you have too much respect for the adults around you to think, I'm just going to slug this guy. I mean, this guy's been bad for a very long time. And, it's like I would set up all of the ghost hunter software and technology, any of these ghost shows that have all the different type of technologies. I'd set that all up in his room during his, like when he was on his deathbed, because the things that are going to come from the pit to drag that guy's ass to the abyss, I have no idea what that's going to look like. I think you would act. I'm not necessarily a believer in any kind of hell, but if there is one, that dude's going. That dude, that dude is going to be dragged. It's going to be like some. Did you ever see Drag Me to Hell? That was a really good movie.
Yeah, Drag Me to Hell or Ghosts even.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's going to be like that.
That scene when they dragged that guy through the window when he got killed by
Yeah,
the
and
window.
Ghost. Yeah, it's going to be that kind of level when he goes. It's going to be like, oh, geez, you're gonna want to find a young priest and an old priest just to protect you. Well, I guess we won't solve it today, but
No, we really went on a rant, but then
we
again, we had a ranty debate.
yeah. So we talked about Ryan Walters in the Bible. We talked about the train wreck of various types that was the debate. And like I mean, I have friends that are Republicans. Most of them are people that wouldn't vote for Trump because they're you know actual Republicans, not MAGA people. And I was very hesitant to coming out in this Politricks with both barrels against the guy, but it's just like I just don't get it. It's like, you know
See,
what?
me-
If I was in court, uh, and I had done something terrible, do you know my wife would be next to me no matter what, and vice versa.
well,
So you
my
can't
thing.
really say, oh, she just doesn't like depressed. No, she doesn't like him. He apparently paid $130,000 to a porn star that he didn't sleep with to say that he didn't sleep with her and to keep quiet about it. Come on. Come
Well,
on,
my
people.
thing is
Come
is
on,
just
people.
when I'm talking about the average citizen, especially in today's society. Today's society, there are very few people who are going to have a blank rap sheet because you can have a ticket and not pay it and wind up with a rap sheet. Okay,
Sure,
so
sure.
very few people are not going to have a rap sheet. But within a short amount of time of simply being in office, that man has 400 counts.
Yeah, and so everybody, and
400
because
counts. That's
everybody,
basically 100 counts a year.
but everybody is trying to say, oh, well, no, all the politicians are like that. This is just a weaponized DOJ that's going after him. No, no, the man's corrupt. I mean, I would just, I wish I had like crazy superpowers, because I would do a miracle man, and I'd be like, okay, you like this guy? How about you trade places with him? I want you to have his karma. I want you to have whatever's coming to him because of all the things he did. Would you be willing to trade? And I think outside of the real
Brandon,
real knuckle dragging MAGA people, I think most people would be like, nah, hard pass. They're not going to trade places with that guy's karma. Because, I mean, objectively, it has nothing to do with him being a Republican, has nothing to do with him being a businessman, has nothing to do with him being anything other than who he is. He is objectively not a great dude. And, you know, there have been many podcasts that have done deep dives on his history of, you know, being the only person who could build buildings when the mob controlled concrete, being the only person to, you know, suing his workers because it was cheaper to sue them than to actually pay them. I mean, he's just not been a good dude. And you can sort of tell because, like I said, if you were to set up some ghost adventurers, ghost hunters, software and hardware, when that guy's on his last breath, you're not going to want to see that video.
well, see, what people don't think about also is that, you know, there is a reason our country is the ultimate bad boy as a country. You know, when they talk about bad boys,
Sure, we're
I mean, because
individualistic. We don't follow anyone's rules. Like,
yeah, we threw the finger up to Europe.
sure,
Yeah.
like Churchill said, after Americans try every other solution, they'll eventually come to the right decision.
And
Or
the
something
problem
like that, or
is,
do the right thing, I think he said.
yeah, and the problem is that it's okay to be the bad boy, but how many bad boys you see survive after a certain age if they don't change? You
Yeah,
know, because they change their behavior because nobody wants to deal with them.
sure.
And
And
how many people don't want to deal with the U.S. now, country wise, when he was in
sure.
office? You
And
see,
wait till if he gets in office and decides he's not going to be in NATO, and then Russia gets to just run rampant through Europe. I mean, it's going to be bad. And what people don't seem to understand in America anyway is how interconnected economies and societies are. If Europe falls enough, you're looking like England during World War II when they were like literally the last the last country to fight Germany. You know, they were it.
right? And we our territories are going to get it first.
Sure, sure.
Maybe Alaska, then Hawaii. And the
And
reason, because Hawaii is basically all by itself. And
sure,
what people don't understand is, again, if there's a way to make it fair, oh yeah, we'll kick butt. Oh yeah, everybody will kick butt because like China's scared because India is right beside them, and India is like, we're not going to go down like that.
sure.
You know, we didn't come here for that. So we don't really have to worry about China as long as India is there.
Well,
Now, if anything happens,
population wise, yes. But if he puts one of the things that Trump wants to do is put a 10% tariff on all foreign goods. That means your bananas go up. That means your coffee goes up because those don't grow in America, ladies and gentlemen. You know, all of your foreign items go up in price because the person who pays the tariff is the consumer, not the country that exported it. They pay it eventually.
well, also one of the things people don't understand, and this is against Biden, but it's not Biden per se, it's whoever was in office. I mean, it could have been anybody else in office. Annie Rooney talked about it for years when we were kids. You know, this 8 o'clock coffee, 12 o'clock coffee was like 32 ounces. Now it's 16.5. And you're still paying the same price. The can just keeps getting smaller. You know, I went to the grocery store and I saw 7.5-ounce cans of pop
Sure,
being sold the same as it was 16-ounce cans of pop or 12-ounce cans of pop.
sure.
You know, I'm at a point, I'm insulted. Look at that can. What the hell is this?
Sure. Well, and like I say, it's like if you're gonna and while there are Biden tariffs, they're not on all goods, and he's wanting to put it on all goods. And I mean, you talk about inflation being bad when there's a few tariffs. Wait until there's tariffs on every foreign good. That includes certain metals that we don't have here, or certain chemicals that we don't manufacture here, you know, or certain things that are in other things, which means that your price of your car goes up. Now, you know, there are plenty of places where, you know, people can benefit because the economy is going to go skyrocket, but in general it's going to make a lot of things a lot more expensive, which means you have to pay people more, which means that then everything becomes more expensive. So yeah, I I don't get it. But I've never been overly impressed by the intelligence of some people. So we're not going to
Yeah,
solve
so
it
it's
here.
a little barren, kind of like a desert. No, actually, a desert's fuller.
Yeah.
It's more
So
like a void, dark
a,
void.
a dark void. Yeah, maybe we're just headed for the, 40K universe. Warhammer universe is what we're headed for.
Well, we can
Well,
handle that a lot better than these people.
I probably could too. At least I'd have a railgun. So that's probably it for this episode. We went for an hour, a little bit more. Politricks, we will post these every now and then when something catches our guff or grinds our gears or raises
Inundated with a serious political week.
raises our hackles. But I mean, between the Supreme Court and Oklahoma and the debate, yeah, it's looking kind of real.
That was kind of rough there.
It's kind of rough. Where can people find you, Terrance?
DrakeStorm@gmail.com.
And you can find me at thatsoquantum@gmail.com, as well as urbandharma8@gmail.com. Yeah, so we will catch all of you on the flip side, and just watch out for all of the Politricks, because they're plentiful and coming at you with both barrels. Take care.
Don't be a stranger.
Just be strange. Bye.
Bye.